Kenya, in East Africa, is a wildlife wonderland. Here, the charm of the rugged African wilderness is within your reach. The call of the wild reverberates against the hustle and bustle of modernity. Nairobi, the Kenyan capital, was once just a small stop on a rail line up country. The last 100 years have seen both a flood of immigrants and a boom in tourism. It is now the largest city in East Africa.
My name is Anzetse and I'm a development economist based in Nairobi. I'm also an independent consultant and work on economic strategy and analysis.
Anzetse was born and raised in Nairobi before going to study in the United States. After graduating, she had the chance to remain there and become a doctor. Instead, she decided to return to Kenya to study economics and devote herself to the development of her country.
I realized that if I was going to become a medical doctor, the only real way for people to afford healthcare is if they have the money to do it. So I then made the decision that perhaps what I should be focusing on is the economy.
Back in Kenya, Anzetse became a consultant, providing economic analysis services to government bodies and private enterprises. An international bank in Nairobi commissioned her to write a report for its small and medium-sized enterprises clients in Africa on aligning their businesses with the BRI.
So one of the clients we support in Kenya in the manufacturing sector is really interested in the works you have done so far.
They were not the first clients to seek advice from her. In the last few years, the BRI has become a frequent topic of conversation in East Africa.
People always want to understand, what is China doing in Africa? What do you think about it? What's your opinion? So I'm finding that it's just becoming a part of the conversation all the time. Just the other day, I was interviewed by a radio show called The Monocle, and they were looking at Russia in Africa, but it ended up being about China.
In 2018, Anzetse joined the Africa Policy Institute, or API, shifting her focus from broad economics to the specifics of the BRI. The API is a 20-year-old think tank geared towards economics and government management studies. Most of its scholars have experience in Sino-African relations. Working at the API, Anzetse's research has yielded remarkable results. Her works, such as the report she wrote for the African Development Bank, Kenya National Development Strategy for 2018 to 2023, received much attention. Anzetse has become one of the leading economists at the Institute. However, when Anzetse began her studies, she found her understanding of the BRI was really quite superficial.
So my first initial reaction was, okay, fine. You want to build infrastructure, but how does this link to African development? The connection just wasn't there. It was more about, this is what China wants to do, and Africa has this tiny role.
With this in mind, she carried out an in-depth study of the BRI and found in it a brand new initiative that would stimulate African growth.
The Europe and North American governments still view Africa as a poor, disease-ridden, very corrupt country. But countries like China, they see Africa as a big market. There's a lot of economic opportunity.
To see how SMEs can make best use of the initiative, she is taken to the Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway for a survey of the route. The new railway is the largest infrastructure project since Kenya's independence. It is also one of the major fruits of the BRI in Africa. Since opening in 2017, it has transported nearly 250,000 passengers, with average daily occupancy rate exceeding 97%. 10 freight trains per day travel back and forth between Nairobi and the port city of Mombasa. The ceramic factory Anzetse visits has been built and funded by a private Chinese company. The factory covers over 26 hectares, With an investment of $56 million, it has 2 production lines and employs 1,200 people, of whom 90% are locals. Alex Gerishom is the administrative manager.
Now tell me a bit about your transport. How has the SGR helped you? What was it like before the SGR and now?
You see, initially when we were doing the construction, we depended a lot on road transport to transport our machines from Mombasa to here. And sometimes it would take so many days. But when SGR came in, things changed.
The Mombasa-Nairobi Railway has cut transport time in half. Anzetse found that the railway not only helps the struggling local SMEs breathe, but also drives up the land prices and adds momentum to Kenya's economy. The Mombasa-Nairobi Railway is just one of many cooperative projects between China and Africa. Since the BRI was introduced, China and Africa have joined hands to build large numbers of roads, bridges, railways, power stations and ports, all helping to break the logjam of African development. What Anzetse saw deepened her understanding of the BRI. After 3 months, she finished her report for the bank. She then used the media to call on African governments to take bolder steps to better align themselves with the opportunities of the BRI.
Now, infrastructure development is key for Africa's growth and development.
So for me, really, the biggest advantage of BRI is to, one, meet our infrastructure deficit in a manner that does not increase the debt too much, but two, really interconnect it in a meaningful way.
All right.
Nowadays, Anzetse has become a leading expert in the field of BRI studies. In many of her reports, we can frequently read sentences like,
the best way forward for BRI is to link to the African Continental Free Trade Area and help Africa's vision to connect all our markets.